All right, folks, here's your 2-second disclaimer. Melissa has had a week and we are diving straight into her shitstorm. No sugarcoating this week, no fluff. So buckle up. If you're easily offended or not prepared for chaos, now's your time to look away. Otherwise, welcome to episode 4. Let's get into it. Melissa, what the F happened this week?
These are the weeks that you just want to lock the door and walk away.
Yeah, you question why you ever did this in the first place.
Why did I decide to do this? What? Why did I choose this stress for myself?
Okay, so real quick, I want to give the listeners a little teaser to the chaos.
Yeah.
I get a random call from Melissa on Saturday at 5?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Want to come take a tree off of a car?
And that was the end of the day. Yeah.
So that's how we...
That was the cherry on top, so to speak.
Yep.
Yes.
So rewind.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Saturday morning. What did that
even
look like?
before then.
Okay.
So even before that...
Take us back.
Early in the week, there are many things going on. Yeah. One thing we talked about last pod is that we're trying to hire again to backfill some staffing, which is kind of perpetual.
Yep.
But we planned 5 interviews on Wednesday. One person showed up who was absolutely a terrible fit. And we knew as soon as we opened the door, this was not a good team fit. So gave an obligatory 10-minute interview and shooed them away. Everyone else no-showed us. So an entire day that we planned time to do that, just waiting around, people that don't show up. I will never understand. Just send an email sorry, I got another job, or I'm not interested anymore, whatever.
Right.
Just, and people that even confirmed the time and had an email conversation about the interview, still not showing up. So that was Wednesday. Also, we have a very large order starting this coming week with a wholesale account.
And your daughter's leaving town.
And my daughter's leaving the country for a week. She is our main cookie decorator. She has very high standards. So if people don't do them right, we can't serve them. This particular large order is all custom shortbread decorated cookies. So that is adding pressure. Also, we're starting a new menu this coming week. So we're changing our menu, and she won't be here to manage the change, the first day of the new menu and new theme. I will be taking that place, but
that's not even the chaos of
so
this
it's
week.
not even the chaos. This is just some of the stuff going on. So great. Yay. And also, kind of stress. Our big wholesale order ended up being triple the number of custom cookies.
Yay. Money.
But also, with all the things happening, staffing leaving and having to backfill, being short-staffed, just all the things puts a lot of extra pressure on that. And our shortbread cookies, there's a multi-step process for them. So there's making the dough, and then it has to rest, and then you're rolling them out and cutting them, and then they need to rest in the freezer before you bake them, and then you're baking them, and then they have to cool. And then if we're decorating them, we have to do a base of royal icing, let it dry, and then we come back over with the design with multiple colors. So it is a very tedious process. So it's not just bake them and they're fine. It is very intensive.
You're not just making chocolate chip cookies.
No, no, those we do as well, but those are, bake the dough, let it rest, scoop them out, bake them. So it's a lot more simple. And then also this is including custom packaging. So each set of cookies that we're doing, we're packaging. So now there's a whole new packaging process that we really don't normally do. So
smooth sailing.
Yes.
Smooth sailing.
Last week we also had someone out sick, so we had to close our location while we were trying to do interviews that no one showed up for. And then we had people out this weekend and we were busy, so we were short-staffed.
Again, busy.
Yay! And then Saturday morning, well, this is just a side note, but then on Friday, morning, had car troubles, had to get our car towed from our house to the shop. That is always a thing. Yay, got it fixed, but not expected. Then Saturday morning, I get there early to start helping because we have one of our managers out on vacation. So I know there's a lot of things we need to do with all this pressure and the orders and the vacation and the new menu. And one of our kitchen staff, who we knew was going to be leaving, literally walked out after being there for less than an hour and just texted us, I quit, and walked out.
Yay.
On a sold out day. Yay. So great. And then one of our other team members who was scheduled and great and no worries, almost passed out. So I am doing our wholesale delivery and I see in our cameras, oh, we're closing the shop again. So we're pulling staffing from the shop to go help. So then I get a frantic call. We need you to go to the store because we need this on your way back. Okay. So I go to the store and get that. And then I get there, find out that my other staff member is sitting on the floor because she's super dizzy and in pain and is like, I'm like, do I need to call 911? Like, I don't want you to pass out. So I'm being mom, getting a cold towel and making sure she's drinking water and bringing her something to eat and trying to manage her issue.
You know what we forgot from the hats? Mom.
Oh, we did forget mom. Mom all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we do have a history of people passing out for random reasons. So this isn't the first time we've had someone like on the floor in the pantry because they just are super dizzy and not feeling well. All right. So then she feels better, but then we're in panic mode. So then I'm doing dishes and I'm helping in the kitchen. Oh, and also, by the way, one of our other team members, it's her second day of working with us. Yay. So we're managing all the chaos. Everyone's stressed out. Like the vibes are full stress. Then we also have this big party in the party room. I guess are not very happy. So then I'm getting pulled in multiple directions. I need you to help me take plates out. And they're not very happy. So I need to hurry up and get their tea trays out. And then something else happened. And they needed me to like go help bus tables. And then someone else yells at me and they need me to wash teapots because we're short lids. And then someone else needs something else from next door. So then I'm running next door. And then in the middle of that, we find out, okay, for the second wave, which is the afternoon wave, we don't have enough stuff made. So I go next door to start making some of the things that they need for the afternoon wave, which is I'm putting together our mushroom meringues. And then we need to start making cookies. And like there's just, everyone's all hands on deck. Everyone is getting very specific tasks.
Just to clarify, mushroom meringues is not a meringue that tastes like mushroom.
Correct.
Okay, it's a
they
meringue
look
that
like little mushrooms. Yes.
For those that maybe haven't had the pleasure of experiencing the tea room, let's not scare them away with the thought of mushroom meringues.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was a good call. So then we also got the directive in the afternoon. Once my team member was feeling better, she stayed and helped us.
That's a trooper.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yeah. She's a trooper. So we had our directive. We're rolling and cutting and baking shortbread cookies to get ahead of our order that's due before my daughter leaves the country. Mm-hmm. And she comes in absolutely freaking out, swearing, in tears. There's a fucking tree on my car. And I don't like.
I'm sorry.
After this day, this was like, there's no way. Like, there's no way that this also happened on this day. There's no way. But I walk out there, and sure enough, there's a giant limb that broke off the tree on the other side of the wall behind where she's parked, and it fell over the wall onto the top of her car.
It's a giant dent in the
There's
top
a giant
of her car.
dent in the top of her car. I'm pretty sure her paint is scratched because it was a Palo Verde tree that broke.
Yep.
I can't lift it off. Like, it's too bulky, and I'm not tall enough.
It was huge.
It was yes, it was huge. It was the size of her car.
Yeah.
But we had to get it off of her car. So we
At
had
least
to
it
call.
didn't break her like back windshield.
No,
or
it didn't
anything
break
like
a
that.
window or anything, but it was just one more, like,
Yep.
you can't even make this day up.
No.
This is just the craziest shit that, let's just do it all in one day. And I keep asking people, like, were the planets all aligned that day? Like, I know full moon is weird, Mercury in retrograde is a thing, but like everybody kept talking about, oh, there's the planets will all be lined up, and what, like, maybe it all focused all this crazy energy directly into the tea room.
Yeah, and I think you texted me like early in the day, like today is just a shit storm, and I was like, okay, she said that before. Use direct like asks next time. Next time you're like, Mayday, wash dishes.
But
now.
I couldn't even have told you.
I'm over here crocheting a little wooble. Like, I was like, I'm going to get some work done and crochet a wooble and like make my day perfect.
Yeah, no, I couldn't even, like, there wasn't even time to go, okay, what do we do? Like, it was literally emergency to emergency to emergency. I don't know what happened. I don't know what kind of test the universe is throwing at us,
You
but
pissed somebody off. You pissed somebody off real good.
But I will say,
Or Haley did.
Well, no, Haley, I mean, she definitely like powered through that day. She also had to stay super late to keep working on decorating cookies. She was there really late. Christmas music calms her down, so she's blasting Christmas music while she's decorating cookies at 9:30 at night. But I will say, with all that chaos, our question always is, how was the guest experience?
Yep.
Like, every time. And we actually got 5-star emails back
That's awesome.
after no joke. Like, it is, I guess, how a duck on the lake, right? Like, the chaos is underneath the water, and my team just pulled it together and figured it out, and everybody pitched in. People stayed late to help with things.
I think it just goes to show, like, no matter where you're at in the service industry, like, especially now that I like own a coffee shop and I'm like knee deep in it, it's really, really always important to remember that, like, you don't know what shitstorm they're living through. Like, and it may seem calm to you because, yes, they're putting on a show for you one way or another. They walk out of the kitchen. Like, that's the one thing TV shows about kitchens or like food service get right. Behind the kitchen door, chaos. Out front, everything's fine. Everything's fine. So it's kudos on your team for pulling it together and still delivering for your customer. Like, that's really what matters every day.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Oh boy. All right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah.
thank you for letting me
You're
get the rant,
Yeah.
getting it out.
I was going to do the disclaimer and I was like, nah, just give Melissa some rant time.
Yeah, I
So,
appreciate it. Sometimes you just got to get it out.
Yeah, you just need a little meltdown every now and then and, just unleash it. Unleash the chaos. So let's pivot to the good stuff. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Listeners, my name is Gabe,
I'm Melissa.
and we are the host of this dumpster fire of a podcast called Join the Chaos. As you've already heard, today we are diving into some fantastic experiences. We just talked about Chaos of Saturday, and now we're going to talk about some questions that we received from LinkedIn revolving around money. So first up, shout out to Sophia with Local First. She was asking about what a business loan can actually pay for: rent, equipment, supplies, maybe salary, plus how much do you set aside for sales, marketing, or services?
And Nick wants to know how to overcome being too risk averse when you're putting so much money on the line, your time and your wealth. And that's definitely a big one.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to unpack. So let's jump right in. I think the first thing that is always really helpful, anytime you talking about business and money, for me, the first thing is like the basics, right? And some of this was hitting at Sophia's question of like, what can a business loan actually pay for besides the obvious? Yes, it can pay for rent. It can pay for equipment. It can pay for, the supplies, the cups, the lids. I'm just going through barista supplies, but all of that stuff, that's obvious. But it can pay for salary. Whenever you're going to a bank, it's always going to come back to, what are you telling them? Like, how are you going to pay for it? Like, you're not going to be able to take out a loan that you can't pay for. So you have to have a return on that investment. So you have to have a plan to use those loan funds for. I know for me personally, I did not take out a loan for my salary. My first loan when we started Brick Road, we started with about $100,000 in debt, just so that way we could have a little working capital. So we really kept that for supply, and it was payroll, but it wasn't payroll for me as the owner. And I don't know, did you take out any? You didn't take out any to start.
I did not take a loan.
Right.
I did apply for an SBA loan, and even the 10% interest, like I said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I had my severance package that I had saved for the business.
So you bootstrapped it.
I
That's
did.
What they would call.
And then also I did have to find more money. So I did have some family that invested, and then we did refinance our house.
Yep.
And I took money out of our house.
Yeah. And I think that's a common thing when people say bootstrapping. Sometimes it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to like just make this all work. It's like, you're going to put everything on the line.
Yeah.
And I think that's very common. I know one of the unique funding structures that we took advantage of to expand our business was what's called a rollover for business startup. It's a Rob's funding structure. So I took my 401k, this whole funding structure. I have so many issues with how this is structured because it's under the guise of like, we're going to help small businesses. And I think it really does kind of screw people over that do it because it took me from being a small little LLC and it forced me to create a C corporation. So I am a full-fledged C corporation. I have to follow all of the stupid requirements that come from that. And like I was doing the math the other day, and just the accounting fees and the lawyer fees to keep all of that like up and running is, I don't even know if it was worth it to put that money in. But rollover for business startup, what that allowed me to do was take my 401k, move it into a 401k for the new C corporation that all of my employees could participate in, which is something I was going to do anyway. But then what I was able to do with my money that moved in is instead of buying traditional stock or a mutual fund or something like that, I bought shares in my company. So the C corporation that I started, I issued so many shares, and my 401k bought all of the shares basically. So I'm the sole stockholder for my corporation. And that's how I was able to liquidate my 401k through a program that the IRS allows that type of funding without the early withdrawal from your 401k. Yeah. Now, it's not a withdrawal because I basically invested it. So if my company goes under, then I just own a few 100,000 shares in a $0 company that will never go anywhere. So it's an interesting funding structure. But I think circling back to loans, and that's where a lot of people start, really, it's putting together the plan. It's putting together the business plan. That's the first and foremost. Every bank is going to want to see your business plan. How do you plan to make money, right? Point blank. You can say, I want to take out a loan so I can start this business and I'm going to pay myself this much money because that's what is the average salary. But if you can't show a bank that you're going to be able to actually run the business, you don't have a plan that you have a plan that you're going to execute on, they're not going to give you the money.
Right. Well, also having a business plan is one thing, and it's very daunting. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's this huge thing. I have to figure out how to write it, and I don't know what it needs to say. But in addition to that, you have to have the forecast, right? You have to have the spreadsheet that shows your money plan, your sales plan, your expenses, and have that forecasted out. So it's not just the, quote unquote business plan where you're writing the narrative of what you're doing. Yep. Like you have to really sit down and figure out, well, how much is this going to cost me every month? And how much is rent if you're doing brick and mortar, and how much, is my payroll and how, right? Like there are a couple of different pieces of that, but I hated writing a business plan.
I love it.
And the
so
only,
much.
well, you are the compliance person. We
weird.
know, but like so many people, writing a business plan is hard.
I actually just started working with Vivian, one of my employees. She really wants to someday own her own coffee business. And right
Have you
now,
talked her out of it yet?
no, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm trying. I'm like, listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
But I started meeting with her. We actually had she set up the first meeting with me last week or earlier this week. I don't know what day it is, but I told her to come to that meeting with a start of a business plan. I said, just look one up online, bare bones it. It shouldn't be more than like 1 or 2 pages for where you're at right now. Like I just wanted to see where her brain was. And it was actually a really great meeting. And it was one of those where we were able to talk through her plan, and I could see where she had kind of discovered some of the things that needed to be worked through on her own. She hadn't gotten all the way through to where it needs to be a full-fledged business plan, but she was on that right progress. And I think that's really important. And that's why I told her, I said, business plans are not for anybody. A bank is going to want them. Yes, we just talked about that. But the real purpose of a business plan is for yourself as a small business owner. It's to think through all of the different aspects of your business to make sure you understand it all the way around. Like if you say, I'm going to make the best coffee ever, great. Where are you buying cups? Like that was remarkably one of the things I struggled with, because my only history working in coffee shops was working for corporate chains. I worked for Starbucks.
Yeah.
There was just an app or a website. We just ordered it and it came on like Starbucks handled all the sourcing, right? It was all branded cups. It was all custom printed. When you're doing it on your own, where do you buy them?
Well,
who sells them?
Yeah. You have to think about like every detail of it. So that's helpful.
And then you have to think about, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt one more time, because the thing that was so frustrating is the number of times I bought cups and I was like, I'm going to buy these cups and these lids and they don't fit.
Oh, that's the worst.
Like, I'm like,
I hated that.
How do we have?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So. Yeah. So frustrating. Yeah. And then what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Now you have 800 lids, and how do you return it? Yeah.
Yep.
The business plan part is, maybe I need to create a new business plan, figure out all of my chaos. But the other thing is, I think it's really important to be able to articulate it.
Yes.
If this is going to sound kind of bad, but if you don't have capital.
Yeah.
If you have some capital, it's a lot easier
to wing it.
If you have money, they will give you money.
Correct.
If you don't have money, it's going to be a harder climb. Like last year, I specifically strategically took out a business line of credit when I had money to be able to use, like, for my whatever credit checks. And, they just want to make sure that you have money in the bank to have it before I needed it. Because when you need it, they won't give it to you.
Right. Once the water's coming on the boat, they're already gone.
Yes.
They're turning the other way. Like, I don't see a boat. What are you talking about?
Yes.
They don't care. And it's hard to say, but like, that's really where it comes down to. They always say, find a local bank, find somebody that can get to know you. And that is 100% true. Like, don't bank with the big banks. If you're a small business, do not bank with a Wells Fargo or a Chase. And I know I'm preaching to somebody that uses big banks.
I do.
But find a local bank that can help you out. And they are harder. They're not. There's not an abundance of them anymore because they've all kind of consolidated into these big banks. But when you can, like here in the Phoenix area, we have Gateway Bank out in Mesa. They're who I use, and I was connected to them through Local First. Local First has this whole initiative about banking local. It's for the fact that your money goes so much further when it's in the local economy, right? So that was instrumental in like our growth, because yes, I did inject a lot of money into my business, but doing this build out, like there's a lot of capital requirements for that. Like it's a $300,000 construction project that I'm going through.
I've done that one already. Yeah. Same.
And then I have my roaster equipment, that's almost 100,000. And then I have the equipment for the cafe, which is another 100 and some thousand. So it's like a lot of money that's needed. And so I was fortunate to be able to do traditional financing for it. And I didn't have to go through an SBA program or some of these other programs that are a little bit more intense to get or restrictive in what you can do. But it all dialed back to the relationship that I was able to build over the last 2 years with my bank, because it's 5, I don't know how many people they have, but like I see the same 5 people and they're amazing people and they know me. They know me. They know my business. I've been showing them my P&Ls way before I needed money. I've been showing them my business plan. We've been working on the growth and development, and they're actively invested in my business. And that's the type of relationship that you do need when you start taking on water, if you are going to go that route.
Right. They're more forgiving.
They are more forgiving.
Because they know that, you've been working on it. You're focused on the right things. They've seen how your business has done in the past. So maybe it's just an economic downturn or something. It's summer in Arizona.
Yeah.
Then they know that it's summer in Arizona and everything.
Digging up the road right in front of your shop again for the second year in a row.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love that stuff. So no, those are great. And I think the other aspect, like what you said about getting your proactive financing, this is where even small businesses need to understand that you have to spend the time understanding your business. You have to spend the time working on your business so you can be proactive and say, hey, what if this starts happening? How can I make sure that I'm setting myself up today? So if something that I think could happen 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, I'm ready. And I think that's where, like, you and I, we talked through that. And I was really glad that you did do that, because now we don't know what's going to happen over the next 4 years. We don't know.
And the last 6 months has been absolutely horrible.
It's been a shit show.
Yeah. Like everything is down. Like our sales are way down. It's Q4. Good to have the cushion to see how we can ride it out. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Q4 was usually our best quarter.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened this past Q4.
No.
But I think that was across the board. Like now I'm hearing
it has been across the board.
Yeah, I'm hearing from other entities. Like I think we even saw from like the city.
Yeah.
Sales tax is down. Like just across the board.
The fourth quarter sales taxes are way down.
So like it's comforting to know that it wasn't like I didn't make everybody mad. They weren't just avoiding my business. So like.
But you do ask that.
You do.
You think, what has happened?
What did I do?
I'm going to other places for dinner. They have customers. Why aren't they coming to my business?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a challenge, but it is a little bit reassuring in a way that it's not just your business, but then also not reassuring that it's everyone.
Right.
So there's the catch-22 there too.
So I think this brings up a good segue to Sophia's other part of their question. Was they mentioned people wondering what percentage of sales to put aside for various needs, marketing services, emergency funds. How do you figure out a realistic breakdown? Guess.
Yeah. But
hope and a prayer.
But also plan because we're in Arizona. So your air conditioner, every time someone looks at it, is going to cost $2,000.
They're coming tomorrow.
Mine come on Thursday.
Love it.
Yes. You have to plan for that. You have to know that there's going to be repairs. Something's going to happen. We went through a series of plumbing issues at both spaces, which every time someone came out, it's another $600, another $800. So you do have to kind of think about that. And right as soon as I opened in 2020, we opened in July. In August, our whole tea room flooded. So like we had to kind of start again and get that all fixed. So like you don't know when it's going to hit.
No. But
there's always going to be an expense, and it's never going to be less than $500.
Right.
Never.
The first two summers at Brick Road, both of our air conditioning, we have 2 air conditioning units. Both of our air conditioning units, one of them each year went out. And so like each summer we're going into our slow season with a $12,000 repair or replacement in that aspect. So it's just like, those are the unforeseen things. So like the third year, in our budget, we were like, well, screw it. At this point, I'm going to do 7% of my gross revenue is going to a budgeted line item for repairs and maintenance. which that is a shit ton of your gross revenue going towards repairs just to keep the wheels on.
But there's plumbing, there's grease trap, there's more AC, there's electrical, there's somebody, doing something stupid and maybe breaking a window or fixing the back door. You just don't know.
Yeah. So I think,
but I will say, like, it's always going to be air conditioning.
Always.
Where we are. Yeah. Like every time that you have to plan for that. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's certain things you kind of know. And so, yeah, you do kind of plan for that. And like the tricky one on that list that I see is marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you budget for that when sales are declining? So you're starting to pinch every penny, but you need to get the word out to get people back in.
Yes.
So where do you balance that? And I think that's probably the trickiest one because like services, emergency funds, we kind of talked about that. But marketing, if sales are downturning, like it's a hope and a prayer whenever you do that. And like, dear Lord, we talked about that enough in the last 2 episodes, but like, I don't know what works online anymore. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I can't figure
it's a guessing game, but
yeah.
I mean, you still have to pay for it. So I've had to increase our ad spend over the last 5 months now from what we were doing. We've, tripled our ad spend to try to get in front of eyeballs again, try to get people to see where we are, what we're doing. But it feels like we are barely eking it out every week. Like people wait till the last minute to book a reservation.
I think that's just society.
And
nowadays.
so it's just now we're spending way more on ads than we ever did before. But I don't really know another way around it. Like,
right.
It is an added expense. So it's not really helping like the bottom line per se.
That one's really, really difficult.
It is really difficult.
Yeah. So what are some rules of thumb or practical guidelines that we use to decide how much to reinvest versus keeping in reserve?
That's an interesting question. How would you define reinvest?
Every time I buy a new piece of equipment.
Right.
For the shop. Like when, so I find that I reinvest quite often.
But you're not really doing it just to reinvest and upgrade. You're probably doing it because something is broken.
True.
So
is it reinvesting?
Right.
Or is it just like, well, it broke, so I might as well get something a little bit better?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for me, I know I have made some strategic reinvestments. Like I upgraded our like whole cold brewing method system containers. That's the word. And I did that. That was a strategic reinvestment to try to make it a little bit easier on my staff. I think there was a few other things where it's like I bought some pieces of equipment, like the new milk machine. That was a strategic reinvestment to try to bring down our whole carbon footprint.
Yay! Cheers to that.
So there have been some times where I strategically reinvested. Obviously, this whole build out is strategic reinvestment. It's just in a new location. Actually, that's more of just like that's not a reinvestment.
Expansion.
That's just expansion. Yeah. But I think for me, my kind of barometer is like, I have this like, it's an arbitrary number, but I have this arbitrary number in my bank account. And it's like, when I've like doubled it or so, that's where I'm like, okay, I feel pretty confident I can do this. I feel like I haven't been there in a while, but I know I've invested in my business. But I think I wouldn't call them strategic reinvestments because I think some of them were proactive hedges.
Mm-hmm.
Like I bought custom printed cups. That's because I don't know when the tariffs are going to happen. And I was just like, well, I'm just going to buy like most of a year's worth of cups all right now. I bought them all in December. Like I was done. I'm done fucking around with that shit.
But that's not really a reinvestment. I mean, there is planning, right?
Yes.
Like you're being strategic in your planning and you're thinking ahead. Like I don't have the capital to pre-buy enough tea to offset the tariffs that might go in, right? I'm going to have to get hit with this 25% tariff because my main supplier is in Canada.
Yep.
And then the trickle down of that, because they're obviously importing tea from China and Japan and all over the world.
Yep.
So I don't have the capital or the space.
As I say, use more of the space because you do have that line of credit. And so this
I
could
do
be an
have the line of
opportunity.
credit, yes. But is the interest on the line of credit going to offset the tariff extra charge, right? Like,
You know how to figure that out? Spreadsheet. Your favorite.
I know it's hard to get to the spreadsheets
It is.
when everything's on fire and I'm in the dish pit and I have to go to the store and my employee's passing out and there's a tree on the car. It's hard to get to the computer to look at the spreadsheets.
Fine. I get
yes,
it. Yes,
I agree. But that like strategic planning is one thing.
Yep.
But I don't know that. I mean, I feel like her question really is like, how do you decide how much to keep in reserve? And to your point, it is arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like I try to put in my plan every month, my projection, $500 for repairs. And I know it's always going to be more, but there are months that I don't have to do it. But then that makes up to the month when it hits and it's more. So I do have a line item for repairs.
Yep.
I used to have a line item for contingency, but that's laughable.
Yeah.
Because I never had enough money to have money for contingency.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of gut instinct. Like you slowly start to get an understanding of your business and you kind of just have this gut instinct of like, are things tracking this way or that way? And I think that's the best like guideline that small businesses can have because we don't have money to invest in market research and economists and all of that stuff. We don't have money or time to figure that out.
You know who we have is our network.
We do.
We talk about it. I know we talk to other business owners sometimes like, hey, who do you use for this? And how much did they charge? And I think that's really been helpful. And then it is just time to figure out, oh, last year this happened and it cost this much money. So I can plan for this year because probably going to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really hard to find those guidelines at a small level. I think you can find a network that can help. Local First is a great resource. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Local First is a great resource.
She works for Local First. All right. So I think this brings us to a good tie-in for Nick. Nick brings up a really big point, which is the fear of risk when it's our own money and sanity at stake. So how do you stop yourself from obsessing over every possible downside?
You don't. I mean, actually, I take that back. You do stress about every downside because we've talked about this in the past, but you and I kind of can talk to each other and balance out. I'm going to make this purchase and I go, you might say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. And I think, no, you have that skill set. You don't need to spend the money on that, or vice versa,
right?
Where you'll kind of be a sounding board or just talking through it, right? But there's a moment though, yes, you're investing your own money. But for me, and I talked about this in one of the prior podcasts, there's a moment where you have to let it go and say, yeah, it's scary as shit. And I'm terrified because the amount of money that is at risk. But if I am not terrified, what is my motivation to make it work?
Right.
So there is a moment of that. But then also, even with that, when you don't know what the economy is going to do or why customers aren't coming.
Yeah. I think last year was an interesting year for me because like we had a lot of emotional baggage come up with owning our business because of some of the threats that we've received for our business and what we were doing, and just some of like just the overall like grime of the world kind of rearing its ugly head. I think when it's easier for me to think about this from a sanity standpoint because I'm fully of the belief that money isn't real at this point. Like it's just fake. We just are living in this world where we're moving money back and forth or numbers back and forth, but that's not a healthy opinion. But the emotional side of it was definitely a little bit harder for me. I had to take a step back and really prioritize my sanity when a lot of this was happening and these horrible threats were coming our way. And it really took that, and that sounds so terrible, but it's like it took that experience for me to realize like it's okay if there's a day where I'm just like, you know what? I can't do it today. I need the day off because I'm working 7 days a week at this point. I don't even know what day it is today, but
It's wine day.
it's wine day. Yeah. All I know is I don't have an early meeting. I can have a glass of wine.
Yep.
That's all I know.
Wine day is the best day.
It's the best day. Those are the days where it's like my body is telling me that you need to take the day off, and it's like it's just coffee. Nothing's gonna be so pressing that it can't wait a day. So I think there's some of that balance that we do have to find as small business owners. We have to find that way to walk that line. And I think whether it's sanity or money, you really need to find that motivation to make it work, but then also where to invest in yourself and like, is it really worth me working 20 hours a day? Is that really going to solve the problem? And that's been really helpful, is to think about it that way of like, am I spending time on things that are going to make me money, or are they just making me crazy?
Yeah, the sanity part is a challenge because it is Groundhog Day every day.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning really early. I mean, it's the same. I got it. Yes, every day is busy.
Yep.
You know, and not to other people's, you know, not that they're poking at me, but when they're like, "Oh, do you have a busy day today?" and I want to go, "What the fuck do you think I do all day? Every day, 7 days a week. Yes, every day is fucking busy. I can't get to everything every day."
Yeah.
So there is the sanity part. And like, I know it's actually insanity.
Yep.
Doing the same thing every day and expecting a different result. I understand that part of it, but I think I try to keep in perspective that what I'm doing every day, one, I'm growing as a human myself.
Yes.
But two, I am really supporting 12 other people.
Yep.
What I do every day is creating 12 jobs. And that is really kind of my grounding point. Like, it's not really about me.
Yeah.
Right? It's about my team and trying to make sure I am able to pay them and that they have jobs and that they're happy. And obviously they're not always happy because of our whole staffing situation, but sometimes it's for good things that they're moving on. But that's my sanity grounding point. For one, the wealth piece, to me, I feel like it's just money.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I stress about it every single day, and I'm worried about it every single day, and mostly to make payroll.
Yes.
Like, I have to make payroll. I have to, you know, keep the business functioning. And if I have to put more money into it to keep that going until we can, you know, become profitable, then my insanity is letting me do that, you know, mentally. But it also is just money. If everything fails, and I have thought about this for a while, one, I'm putting a lot in, so it's terrifying.
Yes.
But also on the other side of the same point, I guess, it's just money. And again, we've talked about this on prior episodes. I'm lucky that I'm not going to lose my house and I can still feed my family. So my business isn't detrimental from my family's life situation.
But we still work every day as if it is, which is
but it's more, I'm doing that, yes, as if it does depend on it. Yep. But it's not my house and my rent and my food that's dependent on what I do. It's my team. It's my team's needing to pay rent and my team's needing to feed themselves.
Do you think that gives us a different perspective than if it was us? Do you think we would be more paralyzed or less paralyzed if we
that's a good question.
If like our livelihood was truly
that's a good
dependent
question
on it?
I think if my livelihood depended on it, I would not be doing it.
I think it'd be really hard to continue. I could see why, like, the emotional toll of like, why am I going to continue to fight this fight? Because like for us, for me at least, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, the joy I get out of this, I'm not doing this to make money for myself. Like I want to run a business. I want to live a comfortable life. I don't want to be a billionaire with a dick rocket going to outer space. Fucking Bezos. But I don't want to do that. And so like for me, the joy I get out of my job is knowing that I'm creating a difference, whether it be in my employees or my community's lives. I think if I was fighting this hard to just pay my rent or pay my mortgage, it'd be really hard.
Absolutely.
I think to get up every day and feel motivated, because you'd start to feel like it's that like hamster wheel of
Yes.
like, I'm going nowhere. I am going nowhere.
100%. Well,
So-
okay. And to your point, community, right? So when I get frustrated, like you have a huge community following and community base that loves your business, and they come in droves and want to be there all day long, which is amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. I feel the community, like I need to be there for people with food allergies. I
Yeah.
need to be available for people who have celiac disease and can't eat somewhere because they're worried about getting ill.
Yep.
Right? I do feel that community need as well. People with egg allergies, dairy allergies, wheat allergies, right? We are that scrappy unicorn, and because of those communities, it does cross over a couple of them, but I do feel that community need as well. Like something that is another touchstone is, we've had over the years that we've been open, like kids come in with their parents and they've not ever been able to eat a cookie because they can't eat all of these ingredients, but ours they can because we've eliminated all of these allergies.
Right. That's
Or,
great.
I can remember an adult came in not too long after we opened, and she had never had a French macaron before because she had been vegan for so long and she could never eat one. And like that sticks in my memory, like to be able to provide this experience for her.
And they're so good. The ones you make are so
Just,
good.
just things like that really is, that's part of our community. I mean, aside from being a safe space and
Yep.
hosting, events for diverse people coming to our
Yeah.
tea room. But besides that, really our focus is, the food and food allergies. And that is our community. So that's another thing that I feel like more vegan restaurants are closing and there's not a lot of options for people with food allergies. And I do feel the drive to have a place for people to come.
Right. Yeah, I think that ties really well into this next question, which is like, how do you maintain the right mindset while making financial decisions under
Yeah.
pressure? I think really both of us kind of take that approach, or we take that step back and we look at what are we doing this for? Why are we here? And it's not always easy, but like that's the easiest way for me to kind of take a step back and like ground myself of like, okay, is this going to impact people's lives? And if so, how? Good, bad, or otherwise? Or are we taking a gamble? I know for us, some of our biggest financial like decisions, if you will, are just using our voice. Early on, that was scary for us. Like we are a very vocal company. And so that can be very scary because they always say like, well, what is the saying? What, go woke, go broke? Well, knock on wood, so far it hasn't happened. And I don't think it will, because like we found very early on, like that's one of our superpowers is realizing that we have a voice of advocacy in our community. And we can position ourselves. So like that was a very, very risky financial decision for us because that could have gone one of two ways, right? It could have either tanked us or it could have done what it did, right? And thankfully it's the latter. But that was probably the point in which I had to reflect the most on like, why am I doing this? And if I can't stand up and speak now, do I even deserve to own a business? If my point is to create community and to build this community space, but I'm too afraid to use my voice, am I doing it? So I think that for me is always going to be what drives me back, is like, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Who am I impacting? And does this make a drastic difference? And I will say that there have been times where we have chosen to remain a little bit quieter on an issue because I felt like it was in the best interest of my staff and their safety and their livelihoods. And that's also something that I will weigh. It'll never be for the best interests of the business where I keep quiet. But if it is something that would risk my staff, their livelihood, or their safety, I'm going to have to think differently, just because they, to me, are some of the most vulnerable out there. They're these young kids just trying to get some ground underneath their feet. Like,
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that's how I kind of view that. So one last question. If somebody is currently bootstrapping their business, what is the first step they should take towards smart money management?
If you're bootstrapping, from what my experience is, everything is going to cost more than you think it's going to cost.
Yes.
You may set a budget and you might think that, oh, I've added 20% over. It's going to be more than that.
Yep.
Whatever you think. When I had a mental breakdown before I opened my business was when I got my construction bid back and I was short $100,000.
I did the same thing. I was
literally a mental breakdown. Like, what am I doing?
I was gaslighting myself with this construction. I was like, it's only going to be $150,000.
No.
I'm going to do it on the cheap.
No.
I'm still doing it as affordably as I can, and it's $360.
Yes. Even on the cheap, it is very expensive.
Yes.
And that, again, that's a brick and mortar.
Yes.
Like, I can't speak to opening a business that doesn't have brick and mortar. I mean, you don't have that overhead of rent and utilities and all of those things. So if you're bootstrapping for something that may not have brick and mortar, we're probably not the best people to ask.
But I do think your point earlier about no matter what type of business you have, if you don't have the fear of failure, you're not going to go anywhere. What's motivating you?
But there's definitely, there are expenses you don't expect.
Mm-hmm.
If you have employees, you have many different taxes that you're paying that you really had no idea that you would be paying all the time. That, payroll and all the associated fees that you think, oh yeah, payroll. I'm just going to do the math on the hourly and the, wages.
Yep.
No, it's always another 15% depending on workers' comp and unemployment insurance. And it's always more.
Yep.
And then unexpected licensing and unexpected, right? Like if you have to be licensed to do whatever your business is, there's going to be license and renewal fees.
We play a TV show that I cannot talk about as part of the license that we own at our coffee shop, but you look up any pictures, you'll see it. That costs us like hundreds of dollars every year.
Yep. Just
to be able to play it on mute, on repeat with subtitles, not for any purpose, just so that way there's something on this blank ass wall. I mean, we've become iconic for it, so I've kind of like just left it going. But like, when I was starting out, I was like, wait, I have to license this? I'm like, I already paid for like Hulu or Netflix, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, there's license fees for everything. Music, I know. We pay that too. Yep. Music licensing. But there's always a fee or a permit or a license and a renewal. If you're in any kind of food, there's grease trap clean out and maintenance. Like, who talks to you about these things? No one.
Nope.
But there's always a fee and a license and extra things that you won't know about until you're in it.
Yeah. So I think my biggest advice would be get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that can mean a couple of things. Get comfortable with creating these projections that are going to be a little bit off and know that that's going to be okay. But then also get comfortable being uncomfortable in the sense of like putting yourself into positions or in environments where you're talking to other business owners. You're talking to other people in your industry. It's very easy when you're starting out in a business. And I did this where I was like, oh my God, every coffee shop is my competitor. No, like I have 2 competitors and it's the green lady and the windmill. Like everybody else, like local coffee shops, that's my network. That's my infrastructure of specialty coffee throughout the state and city and country. I want nothing more than for people to come to Brick Road when they're near us. But if you're not near us, I want you to go to whatever nearest specialty coffee, independently owned coffee shop there is, because that is driving things back to the local level. That's spending money with your mouth, where that's putting money where your mouth is, I guess, is what I would say. So
yeah, there's room for everyone.
there is.
Right. I mean, I know it's healthy competition. There's more options. There is room for everyone. A lot of people don't feel that way.
There's a lot of people that operate with a scarcity mentality.
Yes, scarcity mentality versus abundant mentality.
Yeah. We are very much abundant thinkers.
Yes, I agree. And I think, being able to learn from other people makes everybody stronger.
That's part of why we did this podcast was I don't think either one of us are so egotistical to think that we know what the hell we're doing. We don't. Fun fact, that's why we start off with the disclaimers, because we feel like we're imposters doing this.
Yeah, you're talking about business plan. I'm like, oh yeah, shit. I should really look at my business plan from 4 years ago and dust that thing off, I guess. Maybe it'll help me do dishes.
Right.
When everything's on fire.
We don't know what we're doing, but we're out here sharing our stories and sharing this so that way, hopefully, other people can realize that you are just as capable of running a business. You're just as capable of starting a business.
Yeah.
And figuring it out. It just takes grit and tenacity and a lot of
money.
Wine.
Oh. Okay. I do want to say, just for the question, right? The question was
true.
Steps towards money management. Here's my I'm just trying to be real. If you can do it, I would recommend having at least $20,000 backup savings somewhere.
Yeah.
As a minimum, because you don't know what's going to come at you.
Yeah.
And like, you can't just have your working capital and no cushion. Oh. My advice would be a minimum of $20,000 as a cushion. But I mean, I don't know if you agree with that.
That's a good starting point, because when you're starting out, even when we started out with a relatively low staff. My buffer zone was once when I ran payroll, did I have another payroll in my bank account?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, so as my payroll got more expensive, that buffer had to grow, right? So like when my payroll was $5,000 because it was one person.
Or the 2 good people, old days.
Right? Oh, the good old days. I only needed to when payroll was due, I needed 10,000, let's say, in my bank account. Because then when it ran, I'd have another 5,000. So I had another payroll cycle. It was good. That was kind of always my barometer. And so as that's grown, that buffer has grown. And so I think it's going to look different for every type of business. But if you don't have that type, if you don't have the type of financial projections put together, or even if we say financial projections, we're talking about an Excel spreadsheet where you list out on one column all of the different things you think you need to spend money on every month, and you list out across the top, across all the rows, January, February, March, April, May, June. When are you going to spend it? That's all.
Yeah.
Like, it ain't fancy. It ain't complicated. Just you're brain dumping the finances or what you anticipate them to be. And then you polish it from there. So like, that's all we're talking about, is really understanding your business and thinking about what's everything I'm going to have to buy. Every time you need to buy stapler or staples or whatever, that costs
toilet
money.
paper.
Toilet paper. Oh my God. Do you know how
I buy it by the case.
Yeah. Yeah. It's bad. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've covered some really good ground on the money front. So let's switch gears, and you know what time it is. It is time for rapid fire chaos. All right. So this week we're going to switch it up a little bit. We have one headline, and then we actually have 2 other questions from LinkedIn that we think would make great rapid fire chaos.
All right. So for our one headline, Jeff Bezos sparks opinion page overhaul at the Washington Post. Staff braces from major editorial shakeup. How do you feel about this?
Okay. All right.
Let's go.
All right. You got your rant early. I got
Yeah.
my rant now. I am sorry, but if you're going to sit here and say, I'm all for free speech, I'm all for this and that, but guess what? Now we have the internet, so I don't need to worry about that fucking shit anymore. And so I'm just going to publish my opinion. Fuck you and the horse you rode on. You are at the point where you don't deserve to have that much power or authority. You are no longer like the motto is democracy dies in darkness. They are literally darkening out half of the opinions. Anything that he doesn't agree with, blacked it out. That to me is like so unacceptable. And so no, get in your dick rocket and go back to space. All right. Now that I've,
Did you feel better?
I feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
I needed
Dick
that.
rocket is good.
It does look like a dick.
Oh,
though.
100% it does. But
And I'm sorry.
can we just start calling them dick rockets? I know it's been, I forgot now. It was douche bros or, Doge balls or something.
Doge bags.
Doge bags.
Doge bags.
Thanks. I kind of like dick rocket.
Yeah, get in your dick rocket and go to space. All right, so here's a couple questions that we got from LinkedIn that I think make great rapid fire chaos questions. All right, so Kate asks, what are some things or skills you've needed to learn that you've never expected to need?
I feel like handyman skills is one of them, which is kind of a cop-out. But
It's fair.
like, you don't expect that you're going to have to be IT and a handyman and figure out why the thermostat isn't working and why the oven element went out. And like, so those kind of things I'd never really thought that I would need to worry about or know. So kind of hands-on tech support or mechanical support.
That's fair.
Also, I never thought I would need to figure out, where did this screw come from? Why is this screw on the floor? Does this go to a chair or an appliance? Why are there 9 different screws that we have found on the floor, and why do they just fall out randomly? So now I'm like a detective trying to figure out what it goes to.
A screw detective.
A screw detective.
That's a great hat.
That is a weird skill that I did not anticipate needing.
For me, I think the thing was, before starting my own business, I didn't know what the fuck a vector file was.
Oh.
When I needed window graphics, I was like, here, can you make
Yes.
this into a graphic? They're like, can you send it to me in a vector? And I was like, what the fuck's a vector?
I still don't really know.
Well, I taught
I mean, I know,
Well,
but
This is how far down the rabbit hole I go.
Oh,
I now know how to do Adobe Illustrator. I'm
Yes.
self-taught on Illustrator. This podcast, I taught myself Adobe Audition. So
we got a couple of hats.
I'm just like, me and chat, we will figure it out. Like, I'll just be like, hey, chat, I got this program. I need to do this thing. Dummy. Write it to, like a kindergartner needs to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still a little advanced for me.
Video editing.
Video editing.
That was a new one.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, yeah. Anyway, Kate also asked, what's the most garbage piece of advice you ever received that did absolutely nothing to help? I know mine.
Oh, okay. You go first.
Okay. So this goes back to my score days. Like when I first started, I was like, I'm going to get a score mentor because that's what you think you do. Right.
Yeah.
And you've had very good luck with them. So I don't want to crash score.
Yes.
My old crusty white guy that listened to our idea and told us that we'd be out of business if we decided to do what we wanted to do because, God forbid there be gay people, told us that we had to put timers on tables and limit people to 15 minutes. It's like, you need to make sure you're churning your tables. That's why Starbucks makes uncomfortable furniture. I'm like, and that's why we're starting a business, is because Starbucks a douche nugget.
Interesting.
Like, he didn't understand our business at all. So I was like, you're
that's
garbage. And I never went
interesting.
back for another meeting after. I was like, A, you told me, like, don't tell people you're queer, basically. Like, you'll scare off all the business. And then B, like, don't let people come and stay in your business. Get them out the door.
That is very interesting.
I just want to set up a meeting with him if he's still alive, because he was very old and crusty.
Oh.
Yeah. I just want to set up a meeting with him and be like, hey, buddy, look at this. My queer ass. Look at these numbers. Suck it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's interesting. Turning tables in a coffee shop is a weird concept, to be honest.
It makes sense in a restaurant.
A restaurant, yes, I get that. But coffee shop, not so much.
And 15 minutes, like what was with that number?
I mean, I can slam a cup of coffee.
I know, but like, I'm so sorry. I see you're crying. I see you just got really bad news. Your grandma just died. Could you move?
Yeah, no. That's crazy.
Sorry.
That is crazy advice.
Yeah, that hasn't stuck with me for 4 years.
Here's my lot in life. I am the most difficult person any company's going to work with.
You're selling this so well.
No, it's not really advice. So I'm going a little bit different direction. So I don't fall in line with traditional restaurant management, traditional bar management, traditional business plan. What I came up with on whatever Xanax flight I was on getting back from London is not a normal business model. So most of the time, the things that I know I need for our business doesn't fit in the parameters of what people have designed, right? Like my point of sale, I have to work it so that it makes sense for how we function. Or our reservation system, I have to do it in a way that I know works for how we function. It's not like we don't fit into the mold. We don't fit into their normal customer. I am always going to be the person asking the questions of this new product, and they're not going to know what the fuck I'm talking about. And they definitely don't have that as an editable format or process.
Yeah, we did a demo together, and she was like, "Can we get a report on this one field?" No.
It's every time.
Every time.
Every time. That's me. I'm going to break your system. I'm going to like poke holes at it. This isn't new as a small business owner. I feel like it's just me as a human.
It's your lot in life.
It's just me as a human. I'm going to make things difficult and ask the like super obscure questions. So I don't know that I have necessarily garbage advice, because I'm always asking like the questions that are outside of normal advice questions. I think anything that's really like they're selling some giant formula on how to manage your business.
Oh, you get so bitter about that.
But it's going to waste so much of my time that
so bitter.
Yeah, I don't have time to listen to you and your book and your like 15 webinars to figure out I need to set a goal.
Man. It's just some old white man.
And also that.
Yep. Please.
Yes.
That's my future.
No, that's not your future.
I know.
Final thoughts. If you've had to do it all over again, would you still take out the business loan, or would you go the self-funded route?
Ooh, honestly, I think a better use of all money would be to just set it on fire and get 10 seconds of enjoyment out of it.
So much less stressful.
So much less stressful.
Yeah.
No, but in all reality, I would probably do very similar to what I did. A little bit of both.
Yeah. So to wrap up, if you've got more questions about business or money, or you just want to tell us about your own dumpster fire moments or rant like I needed to today, drop a comment or DM us, and we're happy to answer questions and talk about the things that you're interested in.
Yeah, so if you made it this far into our nonsense, congratulations. You're obviously our kind of people. And make sure you subscribe, leave us a review, follow us on Instagram at Join the Chaos Podcast. And if you hated every single second of this, maybe fire off a strongly worded email to your bank, because they're probably charging you hidden fees on an account you didn't know you had anyway.
Until next time, keep it messy, keep it loud, and most importantly, join the chaos.